What up, friends and family? This is Samuel Dodson here. I'm with Kind Workshop. I hope everybody's doing well. I'm out here in the countryside hanging out. I'm with my buddies Opie and Ellie. We're having a good time. We're listening to the wind go through this big old cottonwood tree. Older than I'll ever be. And we're rounding off the summer here. We're in August. We're August 21st. So solar eclipse day 2017. I just wanted to shoot a quick video and give you a little tour of the camper that I built in April of this year. So this is on a 2009 Toyota Tacoma, and I didn't change anything about the truck. It's completely stock. No trailer package, no extra shocks or suspension. It's a 6-cylinder. I got my grandma's plate here. Her name was Hedwig. We called her Heady. So I got that on there for good luck as I travel around. So this is sort of the rough draft of my idea. The final one I'm going to be making this winter. So if you're watching this in, say, spring or summer of 2018, maybe check and see if I have another video up of my final one after you see this. But so it's kind of, just keep in mind, it's very raw and not really necessarily finished as far as, you know, everything, all the details and everything. It's just sort of a roughed out shell of it. So the back here, you can walk right up into it. You could be 6'5" or under and walk right up into the back. It's got a pretty good height to it. It sits 9'6" roughly from the ground all the way to the tip top of it. So you really don't run into any height troubles with it. I mean, you couldn't go through a drive-through obviously, but nobody should be going through drive-throughs anyway. So but on the side here we got spot for a bicycle and my snowboard. Those two were like late additions the night before I left on my trip. I was gonna just store it all in the back, but I thought, man, that's gonna be a hassle having to work around it or take it out. So I put this up. It doesn't necessarily look the greatest, but it works really well. It's just 2x4 construction, real simple. The thing's on there super sturdy. So I took a trip in this right after I built it. I went from Indiana down to Taos, New Mexico, up through Telluride, Colorado, into Moab, Utah, and then headed west to Orange County, California from there. So this has been road tested quite a bit. It's had about 7,000 miles on it as of now. And show you a little bit about it on the inside here in a second. I just wanted to give you a little outside tour. So a couple of the windows, these ones here with the slant on them, my buddy Dan gave those to me, found them at his work. Always helps when you can get some salvage materials. Pretty much everything else was purchased, except maybe a couple of the hinges and obviously screws and basic things like that I had around the farm. So here in the back, it's pretty big. It's made so you can walk straight in and out of it standing up. You don't have to crouch. You can be 6'4" and do that. So the door hinges like this, straight open. That's if you're, you know, in a position where you have someone parked right next to you and you can't swing it all the way open because it would impede on their space. So I made this thing that pops down and it just latches right here. So that comes up and hooks onto this thing here. And then I also have this that connects to the door, so you can put the other one up and then pull it all the way sideways and clip it if you have the space to do that. So I have a real simple, it's just a gate latch essentially on here, and it's just handmade wooden handles. Real simple gate latch with a wire that goes through and the handle on the other side. Just a little handle to pull. This is all made, I had a pretty low budget when I was doing this. because I knew I was going to be on the road for about a month. So this is all, you know, as cheap as I could do it, as simple as I could do it, and as fast as I could do it. So basically it's 2x4 construction and 3/8 ply. And I was in cold climates, so I did put 3/4 inch foam board around most of it to help insulate. And I got like green, like that porch carpet you put on there that can get wet. It's just like a plastic fabric, but it's actually pretty soft. Got my grandma's braided rug for some comforts of home. So this is what I use for my fridge. I just cooler it. I usually use a bigger cooler, actually a nice 5-day one. But I keep my rim in here or keep it in the back of the truck, because I have to take that off to put my bike on the rack. But I got like this thing here, comes down for a little extra storage up there. Got a spice rack here. This is sort of my kitchen area, so we have 3-gallon water system, and it's just hooked on here like that. So you just unhook it and it pulls right off and you can go fill it up. Super simple setup for this. You want to make it so you can get it out of the way if you need to, and you know, you don't need to spend a lot of money on stuff like that. Just make it out of simple hose with a little end. So you just flip that, water rushes out, works well. And you can just turn it like this while you're in transit, it doesn't leak. I use a 2-sink system, so I have 2 of these, one to wash and one to rinse. These windows were a godsend from my buddy. They're awesome. They got the opening on them. That's super clutch for ventilation. So I'm cooking on just a little Coleman stove. So I put the stove right here in front of this window, and it has one, it's the new Coleman with the 1 burner and the 1 mini grill, so those are nice. Got another little thing up here, pull down, add a little more space. So as far as the sleeping area in this, there's a couple options. This up here is sort of like your quick bed that's already down. You can just move the stuff off of it and put your sleeping bag down. Sleep up there if you want, or the full bed actually covers this entire area. So the system for that is these 4 2x4s that have the notch in them on the end, you can see. So I strapped them in so you don't have, have them flapping around when you're on the road. So you just take that off, pull them out, and then this L-beam here acts as its seat, so they sit in here, 4 of them come down the line, and then I have these 2 pieces of plywood here. So those are each 2 foot wide, so they cover the complete distance of this area. So you put one up, you sit on it, and then you put the other one down, and your bed becomes this whole top part of the cabin. So it's a pretty huge bed, roughly like a full size or queen size pretty much. And this is my bench, and it's removable, of course, so it just pulls right up. It's just sitting on there, and you can slide it anywhere along this rail. So you can slide it all the way to the back here and sit in the back, or you can have it in the middle, sit there, take it out completely. And then I have a kitchen table here. It just sits down in like that. And it's kind of nice because it can slide along that whole rail too. So I use it for extra counter space when I'm in here cooking. So I just slide it all the way to the back, and you can set your plate and all your stuff right on there. And when the food's ready, put it on it and just slide it right up to you. Sit here. It's pretty wide. It's really comfortable. I love how that system came out. That's probably the most simple, most efficient thing I made. And then these things all pop out, so they just lift right out, and you have compartments underneath. I put like toolbox liner in there just to keep your stuff from jostling around too much and to protect it a little bit. So I would put like my utensils in here, your chef's knife and all your stuff, all your knife, fork, and spoon. This open one here is nice for things that are a little taller, just random. This was kind of like my utility drawer. Throw some random things in there. This is kind of another utility drawer. This pops open. And then same with over here. Open space. That's driftwood from Moab. If you ever get a chance to go to Moab, probably a good call. So what's nice about these too is you can pull these out and swap them out. You can change them out in clear space. Like say you're working on something for work, or you're working on art, or you're cooking. You can pull them right up and move them out of the way, set them up there, or do whatever with them, and gets them out of your way kind of quick. I love how the system turned out here. This is perfect height for a standing desk, so if you're someone who works on the road, just excellent design as far as it. I didn't even really plan it. It just sort of happened to be like perfect standing desk height. Worked out really nice. So I also made it so I can black out the whole thing. So I have 17 of these things, and they're marked, you know, just with the numbers on them. And so every single panel that's in here has Velcro around it. So it takes me roughly like 4 or 5 minutes to get out, come in here, get all the panels out, and put them up. So you can black it out really quick if you're real tired and coming off the road and have to sleep at a bright, you know, parking lot or a rest stop, something like that. And that worked out really nice. I mean, sometimes you're in cities, or you know, sometimes you want to sleep during the day because maybe you had to drive all night, that kind of thing. Worked out really nice. So basically how this is attached to the bed is I built a sill on here, which is just, you know, wood going all the way around the top of the bed, sitting on it. It's not glued on it or anything. And it has these metal rails that were already on the bed. They had little slider tracks on them. So what I did was I impregnated like a little piece of wood into the track, and that gave me something that I could screw into. So all the screws here you see are 3-inch screws that go into that, and then this board's screwed into the sill. So that's the first way it's attached. Second way it's attached is these ratchet straps. So they're just, you know, standard ratchet straps that go up to these steel rings that's connected to this main structural beam. So this beam goes all the way to the front of the thing, and that gives it its strength out into this part because this is hanging over the cab, so it's cantilevered over the cab. So you have to have this piece and the piece on the outside are full length. They go all the way through. That's important because it catches, I mean, when you're going on the highway at 80 miles an hour in the wind, it's quite a bit of force on it. So you want to make sure you have your engineering up to snuff. And then the third way that it's connected is from these steel turnbuckles. So these connect in, and it's just these D-rings that are connected to the bed. And those have huge bolts that connect it to the bed. So there's 4 of those. They're in all 4 of the corners. So the steel turnbuckles then hold like the bottom side of it down. And in the middle here, they hold, you know, the middle side of it down. So when you really want to have a lot of redundancy when you're talking about going up against highway speeds, heavy winds, that kind of thing. I mean, the last thing you would want to have something dangerous that could possibly come off and hurt somebody. So you really want to make sure whatever you build, make sure that you know it's going to work, and test it out first on country roads where there's not people around. So trying to think of what else I want to say about it. One thing that's nice about it is it has really good visibility. So I made it so it has this full pass-through window, so when you're in the driver's seat, you can use your side rear view mirror still, look straight out the back because I have the pane of glass in the door. And then on this side, looking over your right right shoulder, you can see in your blind spot all along the side. Same thing with here. So it has really good visibility, made it really safe. And another part of the design that I had was this slant here. So you can see it marries the slant on the cab, and it makes it so that my side view mirrors are usable. Whereas if I went straight up from here, you block your side views and make it, you know, a really dangerous vehicle to drive, honestly. So you really want to think safety first and foremost, and then base everything else off of your safety design. If you try to just design for what you want first, then you'll find that, you know, you're gonna back yourself into a corner and you're gonna say, oh man, this isn't gonna be safe now because I had to make this spot for this or that. So that's my tip as far as how to approach how you design it. The back here, this part was tricky, you know, with the curve of all this. It took a while to get this back part right, but essentially it's pinched in with this sill board here. So this is down with adhesive as well on the bed. But once I put this in, it pinched those two sides away from each other and keeps it up against the side of the truck. And the rest of it's all just, you know, attached by how I already told you. But so skylights I think are huge. I mean, windows really are huge. When you have a small space, you want to make sure that you have a lot of windows so you can let a lot of light in and make the small space seem bigger. So that's a really important thing. And they're really good. I recommend doing clear, especially on your sunroof, as opposed to tinted like auto glass. For night sky viewing, basically. You know, when you're out in the desert, or, you know, you get out of the cities a little bit and you're hanging out. Maybe you got a friend in there, you're doing some stargazing. That just adds a whole nother dimension. If you're closed in, you know, you miss all that. So you got to think of all that kind of stuff, and, you know, what you want to enjoy when you're out traveling. So another thing I'd like to say too, while I have the attention of a lot of travelers on here, is the most important thing about travel is to be kind everywhere you go, and to make sure that you're helping other people, because, you know, there's so many people out on the roadways, and people are constantly needing a hand. You know, you see people pulled over on the side of the road. My advice to you is to stop always when people are pulled over, and to let people know that you're not in a rush, you know, and you want to make sure that they get helped. So that was, you know, part of my mission when I went on my trip, and I just felt like I had a lot of good karma coming back to me, and, you know, it'll just make your trip and their trip that much more enjoyable. And you also want to make sure that you don't leave a trace wherever you go, because when you're in something like this, you end up having to use amenities and stuff like that, and so you always want to make sure you clean up after yourself and you don't leave any litter or trash around, you know, and you want to make sure that you benefit places you go instead of trampling on them. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the tour. Another thing I could say is like performance of it. So my overall average for miles per gallon was like 13.5 to 14, and that's across city driving, town driving through mountain passes, driving through flats where you get high winds. So these trucks don't get great gas mileage anyway. It was up around 19 or 20 in the beginning. So, but it took it down a little bit. You know, I did the slant there in the front for aerodynamics, but I think that ultimately even just this little flat part in the front hurt. Some of the ways of how I did the trim here isn't as aerodynamic as my next one's going to be. My next one's going to be rounded in aluminum and a lot smaller. It's actually going to be only the height of this here. It's going to be a pop-up. So, and you'll find that, you know, when you do something like this, you'll find ways to tweak it, and you realize the things you need and the things you don't need. This was just a little too spacious for me. If I would have had, you know, somebody with me, it would have been great. It would have been great for 2 people, but it's just too big for one. It cost me roughly $900 for materials. I painted it with just exterior paint. Seems to be holding up really well. The windows all held up really well on the sides. On the top, I had to reseal them a couple different times. But yeah, that's about it. Hope you all enjoyed the tour. If you're interested in custom longboard skateboards, look for Kind Workshop on Facebook, and you can see some pictures of some work that I do. I do pyrography, which is burned artwork in them. You know, this is just one that I made for myself. I haven't designed yet, but I do old school maple boards. So this is one in here. I do 7-ply, hand pressed out. I designed a wooden press, and I either burn on them or I'll paint on them, or a mixture of the two. Do custom orders as well as I just keep stock and I sell them that way. So, but yeah, hope everyone has a great day. Have a good time traveling. If you have questions or want to know anything more, leave something down in the comments and I'll try to get to you. So, thanks for watching. Peace.